Thank you for the kind introduction, and it's a pleasure to be back here in the center court. I remember 2 years ago, I started my introduction by saying that it feels good to be a banker in Stavanger. With 100 billion Norwegian kroner exposed to oil and gas related activities, being back 2 years later, it still feels good to be a banker in Stavanger. And that is not because the oil price is as low as it is today. It's not because we have had a very negative development seeming to flatten out, but it's because the spirit in the industry and also the spirit in the renewable industry is what I called quite promising when you look at the overall picture. I will say a bit why I'm a bit more optimistic this year when it comes to the overall picture. I'm modestly optimistic when it comes to oil and gas, but I'm more optimistic when it comes to clean energy. And let me give you the 4 reasons why I'm more optimistic when it comes to green energy before I turn into the oil and gas outlook. First of all, we have the Paris Agreement. And the Paris Agreement is something new in the sense that so many countries, including China and India, have committed to goals out there in the future. And they have also committed to present plans within 5 years' time. It's not only because politicians have become more rational. It's because the forces behind them, the people in China, the people in India, the people in the US, the people in Europe, they have realized that we need political action. So regulation, the Paris Agreement, is one of the reasons why I'm more optimistic. But what we have seen until now is not enough. Torbjørn Kjus in DNB says that we need a revolution to comply with the 2-degree target if we are to deliver on what is targeted by politicians. We need much more than we have seen. The 2 most important areas where I believe we need more actions from politicians are related to coal and the need for phasing out coal activities in almost all areas of the world. And to phase out coal, we also need acceptance for gas. That's the first area where I think we need more political action. And the other area is definitely related to the price paid on emitting carbon. So we need higher prices, more radical politics, and we need more bold ambitions when politicians meet again after the Paris meeting. But all in all, regulation is a positive driver. The second positive driver is about the world records being set almost every week. I've been involved in the solar business since I was CEO in Hafslund, and I remember when we were proud to present results that the cost of 1 kilowatt hour in cents was about 10. Today, we have clearly seen that solar projects can produce at the costs below 3 cents per kilowatt hour. This project is from the United Arab Emirates, and I'll also show you a wind project from Morocco at 3 cents per kilowatt hour. When preparing this presentation, we saw that a new project in Chile actually brought down the production cost to 2.9 cents per kilowatt hour. So we are setting records when it comes to the cost of renewable production every week. And that is without subsidies. And it's not only in remote sunny areas or windy areas, it's in many places, and I'm sure that Jens will talk more about the world records for renewable energy when he presents afterwards. The third important driver behind a stronger emphasis on renewable energy has to do with financials the investment will from not only funds and institutional investors, but also industrial companies all over the globe. And we see that the first year investments in clean energy actually was higher than investments in oil and gas when you look at E&P and you exclude, so it's a little bit artificial number, and if you exclude what is invested in NOCs, actually green investments now is higher. But again, what we see here is not enough. To meet the 2-degree target or the 2-degree limit, we need to step up investments in green energy significantly. Today, we invest about $360 billion a year. According to S&P, we need a number from 2016 at 1.1 trillion, and that should be the investment level every year from 2016 to 2030 to actually do enough to meet the target set by the politicians. So obviously, traditional policies, traditional investment activities are not enough. We need something that we do not know about right now. We need what we have seen in the banking sector, disruption. And disruption is going to happen in all industry. It's not yet as visible when we look at renewable energy or when we look at oil and gas, but we have tendency towards more disruption in those areas as well. Let me just take one example from the banking industry. VIPS, our payment application, was not existing 2 years from now. Today, 40% of all Norwegians with age over 15 years are using VIPS as a payment tool every week. And it didn't exist 2 years from now. And that's how you can see disruption is coming in other areas, and it has to come, and it has to be more visible within the area of renewables and oil and gas to actually move forward in the right environmental direction. And let me add, I am quite optimistic. Maybe it's important to be most optimistic when it comes to energy storage or battery technology, or when it comes to carbon capture and storage, because those areas are maybe the most important areas to succeed. I've been a fan of electrical vehicles for many years. Actually, I had my first Buddy. It was not called Buddy at that time. The name of the vehicle was Kevet. It was produced, or at least it was set together in Oslo at that time as well. But I've been loyal to the Buddy concept since then. And I'm still driving my blue Buddy. And actually now my daughter has bought her own white Buddy as well. Obviously, the footprint related to a Buddy is different from the footprint related to a Tesla. I cannot brag about the technology inside the car. I cannot brag about how many kilometers I can drive in my electrical car, because maximum is about 45 or so if you are driving in a pretty flat area. But still, I love my Buddy. And I think that electrical vehicles at one point in time will take over. But it's also important to be realistic. It will take a long, long time to get there. Looking at the number from 2015, we saw 13.7 million new cars in Europe. About 57,000 of them were electrical. And actually, more than 40% of them were sold in Norway. And the market share for that year was about 0.2%. So it's obviously that this is not going to revolutionize the automobile market. And Torbjørn Kjus has calculated how long it will take to achieve market shares for electrical vehicles if we assume a 33% increase every year from now and until 2025. Then we will face a market share at 2%. And if we add on 5 additional years, we will achieve a market share at 6%. So even in this area, we need disruption, we need political decisions, bold political decisions. I've heard politicians in Germany saying that in 2030, we should not open up for any emitting cars any longer. I've heard a few Norwegian politicians saying that we should exclude all kind of emitting cars from 2025. It's when you listen to such statements the first time, you don't put much trust in them. But that kind of decisions are actually what we need if we really have a target to see electrical vehicles outcompete the traditional conventional cars. So a few minutes when it comes to oil and gas. I'm saying that we need to step up green investments. I'm saying that we need more bold political decisions to meet the 2-degree target from Paris. And I'm saying that we need more disruption to get there. In the meantime, we also need more oil and gas. And my vision and hope is that oil and gas combined can be the real alternative to coal. Because when you are looking at the environmental organizations today, you have a very mixed picture when it comes to their approach to gas as such. We cannot meet the climate ambitions without being realistic and being willing to accept gas as a growing, very important energy source in the mix. And we also need more oil, not only from the US and from the shale resources. We need more oil from traditional areas within OPEC and outside OPEC as well. And the reason why I'm modestly optimistic about the future is definitely about what we have heard here in Stavanger so far this year as well. But let me take the demand side first. The GDP growth, the population growth, the growth in middle class in Asia and in Africa will lead to higher demand. And we need to produce more to meet that demand anyway. You can just look at the number of air travels in China, about 430 million a year right now. If we assume the same growth pace 10 years ahead, we will see a number between 1.5 and 2 billion air travels 10 years ahead. And you can just imagine how long it will take to replace traditional air fuel. So the demand side is and will be strong as long as we will face GDP growth. And I think most economists plan for 3% growth or higher at a GDP level on a global basis. The reason why we need more oil and gas, obviously, has to do also with the decline rates in the existing fields. I mean, if we do not find and produce and develop more fields, we will run out of the existing resources pretty fast. I mean, I've seen different estimates for the decline rates varying from 3%, 4%, and even 5% and higher. And imagine what kind of volumes we are talking about. So it's not a question whether we need more shale oil or not. The question should be, is there a potential for as much shale as we need to meet demand and supply in the future? And yesterday we heard the CEO of ConocoPhillips saying that we need an oil price at $60 to increase shale production again. So the picture is maybe a little bit more optimistic when we look at the total balance. But the most impressive development within the oil and gas industry is really related to the efficiency measures being taken. And if you just look at the breakout prices presented in March, you can see that Johan Sverdrup is not only down, but it's down to 25 in phase 1 and 30 for the whole area through the cycle. And if we look at Johan Castberg, we are not talking about $50 any longer. We are in the mid-40s at least. So we can see that what we already have discovered and are in a position to develop seem to be quite competitive sources. That's why the 24th round is so important as well for the Norwegian industry. So, to sum up, I'm more positive when it comes to green energy and green development, but we need bolder political decisions being made on an international level. I'm positive to green energy because I'm sure there will come a shift in the way we produce and consume. And I'm positive to green energy because what we have seen today is too little to meet what we need going forward, and the forces are working in the right direction. But again, it's not either renewables or conventional sources like oil and gas, it's both. We need oil and gas to balance demand and supply, and more oil and gas can live side by side with a revolution within renewable energy. Thank you.